break. Let's go back to Rick Carell in the pits.
Whatever jacket it was, I could use it down here if this breeze doesn't go away. I'm standing down here with Scott Pierce, Bellevue Mazda. You're back in boat racing. You've got a brand new package put together here. It's a new Leland hull. We know they're very competitive. First run out, you got some speed out of it. How do you feel?
Like I was in a BB in a wash tub. It's pretty rough out there, but we had a tough chore ahead of us. We had a lot of fast boats, and we were in lane 5, and I thought I had Jimmy King there at the end, and I just couldn't see well enough to get through this upper corner to get down in a lane close enough to get him. But our boat ran well, and I guess that one of the consolation to it all is it's not broken, and there's a lot of boats sitting on the beach broken. It's gonna be a long, hard day.
Water like this, what's your confidence level like? You haven't been in this boat that many times. You haven't got that many laps. Plus, you're going out here, and we're just hanging it out.
I'm very comfortable letting the boat run as hard as it can. Our motors are a little bit soft. Contrary to popular belief, we don't have the Pico motors in the Brett second boat. So the boat, I'm really able to run the boat on the wood all the way around because I just don't have the power that some of the bigger guys have, and with that power they have to be very, very careful because that it's almost harder to drive the boat with more power than what we have right now. But we're developing the boat and the program, and our crew guys. This boat was in the water for the first time a week ago Friday, and won its first heat that it ever sat in, and it's continued to improve, and we continue to see. I hope to see a lot of improvement throughout the day, and somehow or another we got to herd it to the final, and that's really what the object is.
And that's the strategy now. Just keep it running, stay in the hunt, and wait for the final heat.
Yeah, we'll run as hard as we can every single lap, but I think as bad as the water is now, I don't think you've seen the worst of it. They're saying 15, 20 mile an hour winds later this afternoon, so it's really going to be a test of nerve and how well the crews put the boats together.
I'm certainly looking forward to that. Back up to you, Steve.
All right, all we can hope for, Richard, is that you can stay warm and dry long enough to get to dinner tonight. That's all that we really care about. Time now for a commercial message. When we come back, more from hydroplane racing, the Texaco Cup at Seafair. Do stay tuned. You're watching Kiro TV Channel 7. Well, we are back at Lake Washington, and we've already had our first controversy of the day. We told you a few moments ago about the Miss Budweiser winning Heat 1B. Well, you can forget about it. They have been DQ'd. Mike Fitzsimmons got the word just a moment ago at the start-finish line.
That's correct. They get no points for this last heat. They are at the bottom of the finish, and they were officially a disqualified boat. So, unfortunately, not just a penalty lap or whatever. As brilliant as that run was, the Budweiser got nothing for it. That makes a new lease on life, obviously, for the camel-powered Smokin' Joes, which then gets 400 points and moves into first place and shift everybody up from there who finished behind the Smokin' Joes. Mark Tate gets a new lease on life, and I think that
Mike,
it had to do with a propeller that was used.
Yeah, we have down below us, as a matter of fact, Mark Evans is holding court with some of the members of the press right now, explaining exactly what it is, but he gave Chip the high sign a moment ago. Chip, tell us what you know about the disqualification.
The worst nightmare possible. Mark did a fantastic job. Great start, as we talked about. Great. I mean, it was just a perfect drive. Then to come in and be told that the propeller is too big, and I think John mentioned to me that the propellers can only be 16 inches. It's bigger than 16 inches. They have a template that goes over it. They weren't cheating. It was simply a miscalculation, I'm sure, but horribly unfortunate.
Now, is this something that happens when the boats come in? All the props are measured instantly? Are officials down there checking things immediately as the boats come back in?
Right. They don't necessarily do it every time, but there's always a chance that they have a template, which is basically a piece of aluminum with a hole cut in it that's 16 inches in diameter. They walk up to the propeller, and if it won't go on that propeller is too big, and they're disqualified.
All right, Tony Ventrella is following the story down in the Bud camp. Tony, what do you have?
Well, nobody's saying too much right now, but apparently if the prop was too big, then that's the prop that was on. Lauren, can you tell me anything at all about what you're hearing?
I wasn't back here, but I understand they have a little ring that they come over and they check the props with, and apparently it did not slide onto the prop properly, so that's a disqualification.
Well, it seems to me that wouldn't you have been running this prop or a prop this size most of the year?
Well, all the changes, we've been going pretty slow, third place boat, so we've been making a lot of changes. We've been dragging out props we've been running last year and the year before, and apparently this prop missed getting checked with the official checking ring.
Okay, well, I don't know. It seems obviously it's a crushing disappointment at this, and you can't tell much just by looking at the prop by the way it is here. But it's apparently more than 16 inches, and that's an illegal prop. Is that what they're saying?
That's what they're saying, and I'd also like to say happy birthday, honey, Berlin. It's your birthday.
You got to keep it in perspective, Lauren, I guess. But still, another disappointment out here for you guys. So what happens? You take this one off. You try and find one that.
No, I think Ron was back here and actually got it down to size, and we'll go out and beat him again.
Just took some grinder and ground it down.
And just made this a little smaller in here, closer to this. Changed the diameter a little bit. Got her down to 16 inches where it's supposed to be.
Wow, holy mackerel, up and down already. It's like a roller coaster out here already. It seems to me, and I don't make any rules, as you know, for the Unlimited Commission, but why wouldn't they measure something like this before the race? Maybe Chip can answer that question.
Well, it's the responsibility of every team to know what the rules are and what the specs are. And what has to happen is somebody has to make darn sure that fits under there. I suspect that this has been a problem before with the team. I don't know that specifically, but usually if it's a little bit too big one time, they'll let you slide by it. But if it happens a second time, they'll disqualify you. I have a sneaking suspicion that this might have been a problem someplace earlier in the year. But what this does now is it takes the Budweiser from being in a commanding position of lane pick to having last lane pick. And this is just tragic for this team. Tragic.
Well, when you talk about bad luck and mistakes and reasons why the Budweiser team is not winning this year, again, a new way to find not to be at least in the hunt after that first heat.
And in football, again, back to football analogies, it always comes down to every individual doing their job perfectly. And if you're an IndyCar driver and the guy that puts the air hose in, that jacks the car up, misses putting that air hose in, a $3 million operation comes to a standstill. Every person on every team has to do their job perfectly, or this can result.
You know him as well as anybody. What's Bernie Little doing right now?
Bernie Little is fuming. He's pretty good about accepting things that can go wrong, and believe me, a lot of things can go wrong in racing, but he is very intolerant of things that happen like this that he believes should not happen. And like you said, it's been that kind of a year. They found another way to lose, and that doesn't mean the day is over for them, but it's made their hill a lot steeper.
Mike Fitzsimmons, what does it mean for the rest of the boats in the field now, Pico and Smokin' Joe's?
Certainly changes the complexion of this boat race, no question about it. And, one has to wonder why the at random this moment that they make that choice to check this propeller. As Chip mentioned, they may have had this situation before, but it may possibly also have to do with the instant burst of speed that we saw out of the Budweiser and the possibility that someone else may have said, hey, what else have you got there that you may not possibly be running legally there. So there's a possibility that somebody could have said that, just like they did with respect to the Picos. Well, fans, you can call 914-RACE, 914-RACE, for an opportunity to ask Chip Hanauer a question about hydroplane racing on his AirTouch cellular phone. If selected to be on the air, you will receive an autographed poster and T-shirt, sponsored by AirTouch Cellular.
All right, Mike, thanks. There's the number that people are going to call, Chip, and talk with us for just a second. Just give some folks a quick hint, a question or two, just to get them online here, just to get them their minds thinking some questions that you're often asked about hydroplane racing.
Well, they probably can come up with much better questions than I can myself, because I've been with it so long that you forget what's interesting and what's not interesting. But I'm sure a lot of you want to know, what is a driver feeling right now? What does someone like Mark Evans feel like when he's probably had the best performance of his racing career? It's taken away from him right now. What's the relationship between Bernie Little and Steve Woomer, two of the real tough guys? Technical questions. John Walters can tell you anything about these engines, propellers, boats. Give us a call here. Anything about my career, racing in general, give us a call on AirTouch. Let's go down to Tony. I think he's got some more information about what's going on down there.
Apparently, Chip, they've reversed the decision. Am I right about that? Ron, have they reversed the decision? Mike, have you guys reversed the decision, and if so, why?
Well, the determination was made that it was what we call a Class 2 violation, which is a non-intentional, does not increase the performance of the boat, does not increase the horsepower of the engine. A Class 2 violation carries a $500 penalty and a warning to fix it before the next event. Subsequent violations will be a disqualification from the event.
But the heat stands.
The heat results stand and the draw and everything stands as is.
Is there any chance, Ron, that prop might have gotten bigger while I was out in the water?
Well, I was explaining to some of the other reporters, there's a possibility, we're checking it now, that if the blades were bending and yielding, they would bend forward. That's the direction they go, and the diameter would get bigger. I can swear, I'm looking at my records now, that this is the same prop that we ran in the Gold Cup this year. So something is amiss here, but I will admit the ring did not fit on it, and obviously we got that infraction.
All right, so we dodged the bullet this time, and it's the right size for the next heat.
Yeah, it's the right size for the next heat, and I can assure you we'll make sure this is right from now on.
All right, terrific. All right, there was just a bit of a scare down here in the Budweiser camp, but everything seems to be all right now. Let's go back upstairs.
All right, well, let's reset our sights now on exactly what the situation is. No longer does this put the Bud in a difficult situation. And for those folks who are wondering, when we're talking how much bigger this blade was, we're not talking very much. We're just talking tiny distances.
Literally thousandths of an inch.
Thousand.
I'll bet you that propeller wasn't more than 2 or 3 thousandths. Anything that just keeps that ring from sliding over it. So I know these guys are not cheaters. It was a problem, and like I said earlier, usually they wouldn't disqualify them unless they had a problem earlier, and obviously they haven't had this problem earlier because they let it go.
All right. We'll be back then. Everything is back to where it was. Forget what we just said about disqualifications. We're going to go boat racing again. Come on back. We're back on the shores of Lake Washington. We've been racing heats 1A and 1B. We've already had our first controversy, and then we've had it alleviated, and now we probably have some other boat owners who are a bit angry, thinking that Budweiser had been disqualified after the violation on the prop size, but that was then overturned by the authorities here. So at any rate, Budweiser stands. I see Steve Woomer walking around. He's not at all happy from Smokin' Joe's. Meantime, it has been it's been a fun morning, certainly, for Chip Hanauer being up here. It's also been a difficult morning. Chip had to get into the pits here, but not as a driver anymore, as a broadcaster. We all know how tough that can be. Here's Chip's early morning today around the boat camps.
Morning. Hi. We have a pass? You gotta have a pass, just like that.
Let's not.
Button on it? I used to have the Budweiser boat. Oh yeah? I won the race last year, remember? Oh, that's right. Oh, well, wait. Well, you still have to have a pass, though. Come on. Well, no, you're not. Well, you're not driving today. No. I mean, I won the race last year. Well, yeah, but this is today. I'm just doing my job. Sorry, but you gotta have a pass. Hey,
you need a pass, sir.
There's some kids climbing over a fence right down there by that Santa can.
Hey! You need a pass to get in here.
Morning.
Hi there.
Where do you want me to sign? I need a credential.
Okay, you don't have your
How you
pass?
doing? Good.
Where's your pass?
My what?
Your pass?
Well, I came here to get a pass.
You get that from your boat camp. Or the credential.
I used to drive the Budweiser boat last year. I won.
kidding.
No, I won the race last year. So,
I don't believe it.
So where do you want me to sign?
Well, we still need to have your pass.
Don't forget driver's license, birth certificate,
Yeah, right.
and some other things too.
Yeah.
So
And then we also have to have you
I am.
sign this form.
I used to be a driver. I used to be somebody.
Well, what happened to it? I'm sorry, but you have to have your pass because we can't do it unless you have your pass. And you have to get it from your boat camp.
From the boat camp.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry.
Hi, ladies. Remember me?
Hi.
I was here earlier.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah,
You look different. What happened?
Well, you see, I really am. I used to be somebody. I used to drive. I really did win the race last year.
Okay.
And I really need a credential. I'm doing the coverage for Kiro, and if I don't get in there, I'm in a lot of trouble. Do you think just this one time you could
Yeah. I think we can, but I have to have you write your name.
No
print
problem.
Your name and
Okay.
put your pass number.
Right.
Yeah.
What's my pass number? I really appreciate
00102.
00102.
Yeah, but see, we had to have you do that.
I understand completely.
And I'll bug
Yeah.
it, and I'll make sure I put it right side up.
Okay.
There you go. All right, just put it back.
Great. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
And
It's
in
nice
fact,
meeting you.
Here, you can have the helmet for it.
Oh.
Thanks. I really, because frankly, I don't need it anymore.
All right. Bye now.
Frankly, I don't need it anymore.
Well, yeah.
At least anymore this weekend.
It's tough, you know, when you're a driver, they treat you different. When you're a broadcaster, I find you have a different status in life.
Not a lot of respect we broadcasters get. Yeah,
Not a
that's
lot.
right. Take a look at the pictures from down in the Bud pit. They just remeasured the prop again. We just saw them putting the ring over it. Chip, explain.
What they did is Ron obviously likes that propeller. Now, there's probably 20 propellers in that truck, but it's significant that they're going back to that one. I think they found something they really, really like. They probably took a little bit of grinder to it. Just now, here comes the ring, I think. That's the inspector. He's going to take this ring that's 16 inches in diameter, and let's see. Voila. More than enough. It does it. Yep, that's it.
I wonder if some of the other boat camps, this is just wondering out loud, after that situation, could they be asking that officials measure all the props?
No, I think what will happen is I think the other owners, if they're upset, are going to say, hey, look, the propeller was too big. You caught them. It was too big. They should be disqualified. That's usually the problem. I think in reality, if it was, you know, that small and it was inadvertent, if they were to do it again, absolutely. But I think if this is a first offense, I think they would do that for any boat in the pits.
Well, what is the reaction around the pits? Rick Corella has some of that story for us down in the pits. Rick?
I'm here with Ken Muscatel. He's on the board of directors of Unlimited Hydroplane Racing. Ken, the propeller's too big. It's not too big. What's your feeling on it?
Well, to tell you the truth, if the call was made and it was too big, it's too big. If this was other forms of racing, then a penalty like that would be held and it would be substantiated. I don't know how it was originally made and how it was retracted and whether it was sort of quasi-retracted with a fine. But a fine isn't really a meaningful deterrent. After all, you still have your lane position, you still have your points, and that's really what matters. They still have the same opportunity to win the race. Either you make the penalty or you don't make the penalty. That's how I look at it.
On a more immediate note, where do you stand right now with that sponson damage?
We have real serious damage. As of the end of the heat, we had broken both uprights. We broke the propeller, and we broke most of the sponson, the left sponson. So it looks real grim for us to get in for the rest of the day. We're trying, but it looks real tough.
Let's take it down to Bill Rocky with Steve Woomer.
We're here with Smokin' Joe's owner, Steve Woomer, and a little bit of a controversy going on here. Your thoughts on the Budweiser situation? Should that have been a disqualification?
Well, you know, I think as a boat owner and one of the teams, we want to do the racing and settle the score out on the race course. You know, we leave the officiating to the officials. We obviously don't agree with them from time to time, but, you know, they make the calls. So when I first got in this sport, I got real upset over that kind of stuff, but I found out it wasn't so good for me. So we just kind of flow with what's going on. We try to settle the score out there. We know that there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the racing itself, and at the end of the day, sure, we'd like to have a good selection in the lane, but you know, our main objective is to be on the front row.
Here, we talked to Mark a little bit about the fact that he hasn't won here, and it's so important for you guys to win here in the Northwest, your home. To you, what's it mean?
Well, there isn't any doubt. I grew up right over the hill here. You know, it's always been my dream to win here, but this week I have not psyched myself up to thinking I'm going to win, because if the break comes, it'll be wonderful. If it doesn't come, there's another race next week.
Okay, good luck, Steve. Good luck here in Seattle.
Thank you much.
Steve Woomer, the owner of Smokin' Joe's.
All right, Bill Rocky, thanks. Steve Woomer, I'll tell you, during this political season, as political as any Bob Dole, Bill Clinton comment I have heard all year. Let's take a commercial message. We come back with more from Seafair, the Texaco Cup, after this. The camel-powered Smokin' Joe's, you don't often get a view like this. Right down the cowling there, the turbine, and underneath the wing.
I used to.
Well, you you saw it from the rear a few times,
yeah,
they saw yours from the rear a few times.
I didn't like that view much.
Is that right? Here are the crowds. Here are a lot of folks actually standing by, watching a boat racing, watching the air show. Maybe not the kinds of crowds we've had in the past on bright, hot, sunny days because of our overcast and our windy conditions. Still, though, the fans have been pouring in here to the shores of Lake Washington, and our Margaret Larson has been out there with them.
People are streaming in. The weather's a little bit better than we thought. They're stopping to get their packages checked. What all have you brought today?
Just pop and torches and stuff.
Brought your chairs? You're all ready to go?
Yeah, anything where I don't have to do a lot of exercise.
Were you worried about the weather at all today?
Nope.
I've been here too many years.
Bagel sandwiches, are you sharing?
No.
I thought not.
Tell you what, you give me any or I'll give you
A
anything
grape?
you want.
A grape or two, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah? You're going to share your grapes? You guys going to have fun today?
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun? A lot of boat racing?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys have fun. I didn't get my grapes, but it's okay. There are lots of snacks out there. In fact, we're going to take a look at the food court in just a few minutes. Back to you guys.
All right, Margaret, when you get out there, let us know and bring some food back, won't you please? Here's the X-Side heading out. Meantime, I want to go back to a point that we saw there being made by Margaret and checking all the gear. In years past, a number of years ago, this used to be a pretty rowdy place to be on Hydroplane Day. Mike Fitzsimmons, you've been around this a long time, as have a lot of us.
Yeah, but I was never rowdy.
Well, no, of course not. But they have really changed over the years and made this much more a family-oriented day.
All around the country, this is so. Yes, the emphasis that the crowd once had on alcohol is long gone, and the emphasis is now on good competition and a lot of fun, and there's a lot of things to do and activities for kids, and that is. And in addition to that, I might suggest too that for the value, there's almost nothing you can do as a family for the price. A full afternoon of sports and racing action and a lot of fun than unlimited hydroplane racing. It's still probably one of the best family sports values, entertainment values there is.
All right, Mike. Well, we are fixing to go boat racing. You're looking at the X-Side, which is out there right now warming up. We've got heats 2A and 2B coming up, and we've got a lot more racing action yet to come here at the Texaco Cup at Seafair on Kiro Television. Stay with us. Boats are already out on the water getting set for Heat 2A, which will be coming up shortly. And the clouds a little bit dark, although we, at this very moment, have a ray of sun shining on us, at least in the pits. I don't know if there's any sun anywhere else out on the course, but Mike Fitzsimmons at the start-finish line, sun, rain, wind, or shine, these guys are going to race.
They are indeed, and it is getting brighter out here. Heat 2A is brought to you by Pepsi. Nothing else is a Pepsi. Seafair would like to thank Haviland for Heat 2A. It is getting brighter out here on the race course. Actually, the wind has died down just a little bit, but we still have that shaft of wind that comes off that street that meets the entrance pin to the south turn. So we're going to be watching that carefully. There's quite a lot of breeze evident down in that area of the race course. Up on the upper half of the course, however, except for the north turn, which still remains a little on the choppy side. The front straightaway, at least to the start-finish line, is pretty good at the moment. They'll be going into the wind, however, there, and it still remains reasonably steady, but water conditions will churn up pretty badly very quickly now. It won't be long before this is going to be an ocean, as Dennis Parker suggested. He hasn't seen waves like that over in Australia. He thought we were running on the Pacific.
I think this all around has been an eye-opening experience for the Australian team. We're really fortunate to have them come over here and take part in our Seafair event and race for the Texaco Cup. But I think the boats are an awful lot faster, the water's an awful lot rougher, and the competition is certainly closer than they were expecting.
Let's take a look at who we have in this particular heat now. Starting out, of course, is the Muckleshoot, which is the Miss X-Side, the U9. That's Mike Jones doing the driving. The Appian Geronimo, the U19, DeWalt Tools. We'll look also for the Miss Kiss 106 with Steve David, the Smokin' Joe's. The computer and application appears to be stuck on the trailer with damage. And the Miss X-Side 2 with Mark Weber is going to be in this heat 2A. So we have two boats that look like X-Side. That's because they are both X-Sides, but one of them runs under the name of Muckleshoot. And we have a white flag showing, so we are shortly to get into race mode here. We're waiting for the trailer boat to get just a little bit closer up, though. He's kind of far back. He's Mark Weber.
You know, what's going to be interesting is to see Smokin' Joe's does not have a real threat, I don't think, here in a boat-to-boat race, but I think he wants to know what kind of a lap speed he can lay down and then compare that to what Budweiser does and Pico's does in the second heat.
I agree with that. I think he has an unpressured situation, except an opportunity to really test his boat in rough water and do a few things that he wouldn't be able to do with a Budweiser sitting on his hip. Here they come to the line.
There's
that
the
green goes up,
get a start.
Right away, Mark is on top of it.
Mark got a beauty. That was perfect.
Yeah, he was on the outside there and really able to see the green flag come out from the boat here first, and as he squashed the throttle, it looks like he's pretty well driving away from everybody on the outside there. Not a real big threat. Everybody's giving everybody plenty of room as they get down here this side. It's really rough down there, and you can see the boats hopping and bouncing as they score up to getting ready to go out, and I don't know,
Take a look at DeWalt Tools coming off that corner. Very nice corner for Mike Hansen, and he is coming on strong up the back chute in the deck-on-deck now with the camel-powered Smokin' Joes.
Somebody's gone dead down in the first turn down here. I see a strobe light, and it looks like one of the Excite boats, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem when they come around for this next lap. It looks like he's trying to restart it.
This is a great race, guys. I think Mike Hansen is doing a phenomenal job here.
He is indeed, and he's taking the camel-powered Smokin' Joes a little bit wide. The horsepower advantage goes to Mark Tate, but as they come across the start-finish line, end of lap number 1, virtually they're dead even. Virtually dead even, and Mike Hansen is definitely driving a nice race right at the moment. He has the inside lane advantage. He has a little bit of a high-riding boat at the moment, but not bad handling considering the conditions, and he is definitely in the thick of this one. As they come off the corner, he once again has controlled the turn.
This is a good race. You know, this is very unexpected. Mike Hansen has never run, I don't think, all year long in front of the likes of Smokin' Joe's or Bud, and right now his heart is pounding.
Here you can see Smokin' Joe starting to come up on the outside there, just backed off a little bit. I'm not sure what happened there.
I don't know what did either, but all of a sudden he was there, and then all of a sudden he dropped back, and the DeWalt Tools continued to maintain its advantage, but it appears that Mark is still having a little bit of flight problems with the camel-powered Smokin' Joes, and he just at the end of the chute does not have sufficient control to feel safe at the highest possible speeds. As we come down to the end of lap number 2, we're still deck to deck as they come straight across side by side.
They're coming up on a lap boat now, and that's going to be a problem for Mike Hansen because he's going to have to deal with this water that's being laid in front of him by these lappers. And I think it's going to give Mark Tate what he needs to do to go by him.
And you can see Mark still having some boat handling problems as he comes down the front straightaway there. He pulled right up beside Mike, and then you could hear the thing compressor stall because he was coming off of the pedal so hard with his foot. Now he's got a bit of an advantage. You can see him start to drive away going down the back straightaway.
You see the water that Mike, Mike got the traffic. And what Mike needed to do as he came off that corner is look farther up ahead and see the lane 1 was taken by a lap boat and move outside and buy himself some room, but I just don't think he saw that boat up there.
He did not. We're on the checkered flag lap right now. Happy and Geronimo's dead at the 3/4 mark of the back chute. Oh, Mike Hansen gets a little bit loose trying to tighten up off this corner. He's still game out there. He's still trying, but it's going to be the camel-powered Smokin' Joes, but barely. Mike Hansen drove a very fine heat in second place in the DeWalt Tools. Third place overall.
I tell you, that could have been much different if Mike Hansen would have looked up the pike a little bit farther, made himself some room. I think he could have gone. I think he could have beat him.
Anticipation down the line so important, Chip, as you mentioned, and if you don't see what's happening unfolding on the race course as much as a half mile ahead of you, sometimes you confine yourself to what you see right now, then have to run into it and make a snap decision when you get there.
Did you gain lap speeds on that, Mike? Do we know how fast any of those guys were going?
Yeah, we did indeed. Let's take a look at it. Some of the lap speeds that we've got here for you. The winning lap average is at 138.892 miles an hour, and we saw the Smokin' Joes running 128, 134, 134.8. So she was a little bit quicker, obviously, and the DeWalt Tools ran one at 138, one at 130, one at 131.
You know, the way I see things happening here is more and more as this day progresses, things are looking better and better for the Budweiser. I don't think the Smokin' Joes is as dominant as it's been earlier in the year, nor do I think Pico's is as dominant as they've been earlier in the year, and I think Budweiser's looking better than they ever have.
Boat handling is a problem for the Smokin' Joes today. I haven't seen the boat as temperamental as it appears to be today. This water, of course, Mark likes to drive the boat very loose and very light, but this water is not cooperating with that style.
All right, John, don't you think that the Smokin' Joes has always been really pretty much of a cupcake as far as handling, and I just don't see it that way today.
Yeah, especially this season, they've been able to run the boat very light and really light on its speed, and I think that as the wind and the water conditions here keep changing, they're chasing their tails a little bit, trying to figure out what the best combination is. I think, they're trying to fly the boat over the lumps and bumps here so they don't suffer any hull damage, but they get things so flighty and so light that when Mark really tries to, run hard down into the straightaway here into the first turn into the wind, that it definitely, tries to fly away on him, and you can see him getting on the canards. You can hear him coming off the throttle as the engine starts to decelerate very fast. The compressor stalls.
Do you guys feel the same thing I feel? Do you feel things are moving around here in the pits a little bit as far as momentum?
I think certainly they are. This is, as I said at the top of the show, this is a race that people are going to have to wait and let it come to them because it's not the kind of thing that you can attack aggressively.
Right, and the Budweiser seems to be doing just that, and it just seems like little by little, it seems to kind of be playing into their hands, and then, of course, dodging that bullet of the propeller.
That was a major dodge, too.
So this next heat's going to be very, very interesting. I don't think the Pico's got it. I look at the lap speeds from the first heat, I don't think they can do it. I think Budweiser, no matter which lane they have, is going to take Picos and beat them.
Well, let me jump in here real quick, Chip. Didn't we see a bit of a surprise, though, just a couple of weeks ago with Vilwalk and company kind of laying back and then all of a sudden coming on and exploding with some speed there that even surprised Mark Tate and the Smoke and Joe's crew?
Yeah, it's not as predictable as it used to be, because the combination, it's a very small window you're trying to hit, and maybe you can't find the combination, can't find it in the first heat, second heat, but then all of a sudden in the final you find it, and all of a sudden, as you said, the Picos just came out of nowhere and was gone. So any one of these three boats is capable of doing that. But these lane picks now are getting to be more and more critical.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a much more interesting day than I think we thought Thursday.
Yeah.
Let's go to Bill Rocky down the pits.
Mark Tate, Mike Hansen gave you all you could handle there.
Yeah, he did. We made some changes on the hull, and the boat ride was just horrible. I had everything I had just to hang on to the boat and get the heat win.
Did you think maybe he was going to get you? You didn't. It took to the last lap before you really were able to overtake him.
Well, I was kind of just hanging there with him, and knew I had the power. I just had to keep the boat settled in. And when we were coming up on lap traffic, I definitely had a little advantage of where to pick the spot at that point.
Did you make a couple changes between heats 1 and 2?
Yeah, we did. It looks like maybe we went the wrong way with the boat. It was definitely getting fairly light out there, and just couldn't utilize the power.
Okay. Winner here, Mark Tate. So far, so good.
All right, Bill Rocky now down to Tony Ventrella.
Thanks, guys. Here's Mike Hansen. Boy, you gave it a good shot, a real good shot.
Well, Chip been talking all week trying to justify this is a 3-boat race. Well, Chip, let's try to make it 4, okay?
Yeah, it was a 4-boat race. And this, it's a little rough out there, but you guys are obviously prepared for that. That doesn't make it any easier, does it?
No, it doesn't make it any easier on any of the drivers out there. But, we've made some changes from the first heat, and the boat ride got a lot better from the first heat to this heat. We can seem to handle the rough water, especially on the inside lanes, pretty well. So I think we might be ready for it.
Mike, here's the way I look at it. You got a 3rd place finish, you got a 2nd place finish. Let's see, what's next?
2 firsts.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Way to go, Mike. Nice
All right,
job.
thank you.
Okay, back to you guys upstairs.
Tony, thanks a lot. Chip, you had a comment.
I think it is a 4-boat race. I think Mike Hansen just did a fantastic job right there. The other thing he had going for him, of course, is he had the inside lane. Smoke and Joe's had to come from way outside. But I like the way Mike Hansen's boat handled. I wished he would have looked a little bit farther ahead. And in the final heat, we're going to look for that too, because remember, the final heat is a 5-lap race. The lap traffic is going to become more important. Those kinds of things are going to become more important in the final than they are in these 3-lap elimination heats.
All right, Heat 2B is coming up in a couple of moments. Let's talk about the storylines in both of those situations with respect to Bud and Pico. We saw a Pico boat that didn't handle very well, didn't seem to have a great deal of speed. No. We saw a Bud boat that had a controversy and had some of its skin removed. How are those crews getting ready right now?
I think we've seen a reversal in roles here. I think the Picos came into this, all of us feeling that they had the best handling boat, that they had the quicker of the 2 boats for sure. But now I think that's reversed. And remember what Picos has gone through this week. They've crashed. They've brought a boat that they haven't run in a lot of weeks back out. They haven't had much time to dial it in. The Budweiser now has had some time to kind of get things together, get things worked out. I don't know. I just feel more and more strength coming from that Budweiser team.
Mike Fitzsimmons, yeah.
This time, and I know that you don't want to turn the card over quite this early, but they're going to have to do that. Otherwise, you may be definitely correct on this. I do think, however, that you're underestimating what they've got.
Yeah, well, very well could be, but we haven't seen it as of yet, and I think you're right on one thing that's very critical, Mike, is that Dave Vilwalk needs to see it. Dave Vilwalk needs to have that confidence. It's no fun going in a boat race, and I think John will agree with this, thinking that your sword is 6 inches shorter than the other guy's sword. You want a sword just as big, and when you know or you don't think you have quite the weapon that the other guy does, it really shakes your confidence.
Yeah, you want to go out there, going into it that it's survival of the fittest, just like everything else in life, and you want to be at your very best. Dave got shook up a little bit yesterday when the boat got upside down. Now all of a sudden we're putting him in a boat that is maybe not quite as fast as the other one. His confidence is down a little bit. The weather is a little bit of a factor here. The other thing that I think is a real factor that started to show its head last week is that the Budweiser guys are making progress here.
Yes.
I think that Mark Evans was in the process of driving around the outside of Smoke and Joe's in Tri-Cities last week and had it accomplished until he flat spun the boat in the first turn there and took himself out. So they're making big progress, and I think that Dave is not only looking over his shoulder, he's having to do it with not as good as equipment as he had yesterday.
Heat 2A was brought to you by Pepsi. Nothing else is a Pepsi. Seafair would like to thank Haviland for Heat 2A. The one interesting thing, gentlemen, on this whole process is that here we are down through 2 full heats in the first section and 1/2 of the second section, and it's anybody's ballgame.
Absolutely, and that's wonderful. Don't leave your television sets, folks, because I think right now there's 4 boats. I couldn't predict who's going to win this race, and I think we're getting close to a trophy presentation also. Mark Tate and Smoking Joe.
Yep, although, let's see. I think we're going to wait on that for just a couple of seconds while they take a few still photos. Gentlemen, do we want to go to a commercial break now, or do we want to go to presentation? Yeah, let's take a break. We'll be back with more right after this. Boat being towed back in here on Lake Washington as we get set for Heat 2B, which is coming up probably about 15 minutes from now. Meantime, Heat 2A is in the record books, and we've got a presentation down directly in front of us as we get into position, and it will be Mark Tate winning Heat 2A.
I'm David Klopp with Texaco Haviland, and we're proud to be sponsors of the Texaco Cup here at City Fair for the Unlimited Hydro Heat number 2 race. We'd like to congratulate Mark Tate and Smoking Joe's Racing to be the winners of this race this afternoon. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Bob, and just like to thank Haviland and Texaco for their support of Heat 2A and the support that they give Seafair. Without a group like you, it would be tough for all of us to be here having fun, and I recommend everybody out there in the audience to try System 3 Haviland. Great product. Thank you. Thank you.
That's Mark Tate. If you don't get your fill of commercials during Seafair, you're just not watching closely. That's all I can tell you. Mark, he's even waving to us down here. Thanks, Mark. All right, here's a bit of the air show, the Seafair air show going on right now. This is, it's kind of the civilian equivalent, that is, of the Navy's Blue Angels, the Lima flight team. 16 planes, the propeller-driven T-34 Mentor in a series of adrenaline-pumping aerobatics and high-performance aerial maneuvers. T-34, by the way, one of the first aircraft flown by many current and former military pilots.
Why are they called the Lima?
I know, or Lima, or I don't know. Are they from Ohio? Let's see. They're the Lima flight team based out of Napier Aero Club Field in Napier, Illinois.
Maybe they're sponsored by a Lima bean.
Well, everybody else is sponsored around here except me. That's all I know. Nobody's...
The U-19, the Avian Geronimo, which did not finish that heat, also got penalized for having gone inside the safety zone. And I know that John was just on the cellular phone talking to his crew down there with respect to their next step, but you didn't know that you were also in a little trouble, too.
Well, I'd heard rumors that there was a penalty there, but I didn't know who it was on. So it sounds like maybe Larry cut across the areas of the infield there. There's kind of no man's land, whether they're safety boats or patrol boats or whatever out there, and to keep the dangerous areas. They don't want race boats going through there. So.
And sometimes they call them and sometimes they don't. Just before the start of the heat over in Tri-Cities last weekend, the camel-powered Smoking Joe's right in front of the start-finish line drove outside the outer course marker and was never tagged for it. So right in front of the officials. Very, very bold move. But in any event, they weren't tagged for it, and those sorts of things do happen. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. Well, that adds a little insult to injury, but doesn't really change much in the way of the lay of that last heat.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much, and John Walters. You continue to watch the Lima flight team. I think we're trying to get the proper pronunciation of that. At any rate, we just want to make sure that we have it right for the team, and all of you who are here watching, both in TV. Jamie, what is it?
FAA designator for their team, LL10.
Oh, and it's Lima? Lima. All right, we've got it officially now. It is Lima.
I feel better now.
Do you? So do I. That was the Budweiser you saw being lowered into the water. One of the things that Chip Hanauer has certainly accredited his success to has been his safety inside the boat. There's a good deal that goes on inside that cockpit that both keeps him safe and keeps all the information flowing between himself and his crew. Chip had a chance to show us around the cockpit a little bit earlier.
Unlimited hydroplane racing has seen a tremendous amount of change in the past few years, but nothing as significant as the enclosed canopy. The enclosed canopy has saved drivers' lives. It has saved my life many times. But what you can't see is what's going on inside that enclosed canopy. We're going to change that. We're going to take you inside the cockpit and show you what a driver is doing to make an unlimited hydroplane do what it does. Obviously, the first thing a driver has to do once he's in the boat is start the boat. With a turbine engine, that's really easy compared to the old Rolls-Royce engines. First thing you got to do is turn these batteries on. Flip that switch on. You turn a boost pump on, hit the start button. As the engine starts to roll over, you flip these igniters on. Much like a spark plug, it ignites and you're on your way. Once the boat's on its way, it's pretty straightforward, not unlike your car at home. Underneath there's two pedals. One is a throttle pedal, just like in your car. And the other is what we call a canard pedal that runs the wing on the front. If the boat goes upside down, there's a number of things that have to happen. First thing what you want to do is stay buckled in, because if you unbuckle, you kind of fall into the bottom of the boat, or which is now the top of the boat, and you're disoriented. You want to stay in the cockpit, take the steering wheel off. You want to turn this handle down here. That releases the escape hatch so they can pull you out through the bottom. And only when that escape hatch is open and you're at its surface do you take this off. This is an air mask. This is what you've been breathing while you're underwater. In the old days, you probably were maybe hurt on your way to the hospital at best, but now with these enclosed canopies and all of these safety things going for you, usually you're on your way home, safe and sound.
Safe and sound indeed. And there is the canopy on the Miss Budweiser, and those canopies have kept you safe over the years, although as you said a little earlier when we talked about the vintage hydroplanes, you were one of the few guys out here who've been in those open cockpit jobs too.
Right, the thing that's sad to me is that a lot of my friends, Bill Muncie, Dean Chenoweth, Jerry Bangs, their accidents today would be laughable. I mean, they would have gotten wet and that would have been it. You know, now those accidents are nothing. But in those days, if you saw an unlimited hydroplane go upside down, your first thought was the driver was lost. Today, when we see an unlimited hydroplane go upside down, our first assumption is the driver is probably okay, and that's been the greatest change the sport has ever seen.
It is one of the questions that you're often asked. I know I've asked you as many times as I've interviewed you about the safety issue. Well, it is time to find out some questions from you, the viewer, and we have one on the AirTouch Cellular right now here to talk to Chip Hanauer. This is Jim in Kirkland. Jim, what's your question?
My question is, I was watching the TV and I see two hydroplanes down in the pits. I would like to know if each hydroplane has to qualify for the race or only just one.
If you want to run both boats, you've got to qualify both boats. Except, let's use the Picos for example. They crashed, and because their boat was damaged, they were not, made to go out and re-qualify. But if they wanted to have a pick of running one boat or the other boat, they would have had to qualify both boats. That's been kind of a heated question because some of the teams with better sponsorship with more money have two boats, and that's something the other teams can't afford. They say that's an unfair advantage, but heck, this is capitalism, and sometimes that's just the way it goes. But great question, Jim. Thanks for calling.
Jim in Kirkland, thank you. And you will have your opportunities at times during the day to give Chip a call at 914-RACE, R-A-C-E, and he'll answer a couple of the questions on the air, and some he'll take off the air as well. Time for a commercial message. When we come back, we've got more racing for you here. The Texaco Cup at Seafair rolls on from the shores of Lake Washington. As the air show continues over Lake Washington, we roll on here with the Texaco Cup at Seafair. And we've got another phone call, and this has been kind of fun because it gives you, the viewers, a chance to actually talk to the number 2 all-time winning racer. This is Doug from Everett. He's got a call now for Chip Hanauer. Doug, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, Doug.
Doug, can you hear us?
Doug, are you there?
Well, Doug must have set the phone down so he could watch TV. Doug, we're going to give you one more chance to ask your question.
We'll even tell you about the Lima Lima Air Show, Doug, if you'll speak to us.
All right, Doug.
We lost Doug.
Doug walked away from his phone. Well, anyway, aside from that, one of the questions, again, as we talk, Chip, long time you've been in this sport. You've enjoyed this sport over the years. You look out over this What can be done to make this sport even better? What can be done to guarantee that this sport's going to be around for another 10, 15 years?
I think it's going to take some very strong leadership, somebody that's really pretty sophisticated. Motorsports has become a very sophisticated industry. If you look in, sports marketing right now, motorsports is the fastest growing spectator sport in the country. I'm afraid our sport has kind of missed out on that boom, and I think we need some leadership that's maybe going to bring us some of the answers from NASCAR, IndyCar, that's made those so successful. Bring some of those answers here.
One of the things you do have going now, and Mike, you can jump in on this conversation certainly, is the competitive nature of the sport. A couple of years ago, let's face it, Budweiser was running out in front of everybody with all the equipment, and now everything has been drawn together a little bit tighter. Boats are racing a little more deck to deck, right?
Right, and I think you can thank the fuel restrictor for that, for a lot of it. Here we are, we're going into the second round, the second of the second heats, and we can't tell who's going to win this boat race. There is no clear dominant boat here right now, and that's a good thing.
Mike, there is some controversy, though, over this whole fuel restrictor thing, is there not?
Well, there is. It used to be that you would tweak up the hot section of the engine, the N1 section of the engine to make your horsepower. Now people are trying to tweak it up in the cold section, N2 section, and things are breaking. Everybody's trying to keep it clse to the vest. John, you know full well, being a turbine expert as you are, that you really can't make a whole lot of horsepower by tweaking up the N2. We used to run at 105%. Now we're up to 120, 125%, and stuff is starting to break, and that tweaking of it down has caused some of the teams to go in a direction that really isn't healthy for the motors.
Yeah, we are starting to break some things now. Over the past couple of years, actually, I think most of the guys were getting by without really damaging very much. Partly that was for the fuel restrictor. The fuel restrictor was put in play. It limited the amount of fuel that you can run through the engine, cooling the temperatures down, and we weren't burning up the pieces. Now that we've got the fuel restrictor sorted out a little bit, we've gone a little bit lower, so you're not making quite as much horsepower. The guys have started going to lower gear ratios. The lower gear ratios mean that in order to get to the first turn with the boys and have the kind of top end speed that you need, that you end up having to run big propellers, and you also have to run the power turbine speed much faster. And as we run them much faster, they start to stretch and things start to touch, and now we're breaking things again. So let's go see what Rick has to talk about.
All right, well, we'll get back down to the pits in just a couple of minutes, John. Thank you. In the meantime, let's take a break for a commercial message because it's race time when we come back. Heat 2B upcoming. We'll take a look at the Stars and Stripes waving in the distance. We are in a wind delay here on Lake Washington. Mike Fitzsimmons, you've heard this before?
Oh yeah, it happens on occasion. Obviously wind has been a concern that we've had all day, and it has been with us all day, but it is pretty stout right at the moment. Blowing from the south-southwest, and we've got some pretty steady wind all the way, and Whitecaps on at least the north half of the race course at the present time, so a little bit less than raceable water right at the moment.
We look out from our vantage point here in the pits. We see a lot of pleasure boats out along the log boom, and they're all standing by waiting for the racing. We also see helicopters and biplanes and what have you, single-engine aircraft flying in the air above. Talk about that log boom a little bit. Talk about that, the conditions on the water, what with the wind and the rollers and everything else, Mike.
Well, one of the things the log boom does is heave, and it heaves in a sort of a harmonic in a sort of an undulation, if you will, depending upon the wind direction and the surface water flow direction. And when it does heave, it sends parallel rollers back out onto the back chute. And when I say parallel rollers, these are not swells that you can jump over the top of. These are troughs that you've got to fall into, right spawns and left spawns. And as you're paying attention to what's happening with the competition as things unfold, sometimes you're not paying attention to those holes in the water. And when you get down a back chute, these are the kinds of things that can launch you off. And as many drivers know, Lake Washington is just famous in the back chute for that sort of a thing. And then when you get the wind and the undulation and the chop of the propellers and the wakes dug in here, this water can be just downright treacherous.
Mike, we've also just gotten word from our Clark Stahl in Chopper 7, who is monitoring radio traffic out there among the boats and the shore, that a couple of the patrol boats have broken anchor because of the wind, the chop, and has blown them off their anchor, and so they have to be reset, and of course they can't be drifting out toward the course. And as dangerous as that sounds, So that's kind of what part of this delay is all about. So we'll wait to see. There's Chopper 7 flying high overhead right now with, again, Clark Stahl at the controls, Bill Heinlein taking the pictures for you. And let's hope things don't go to that. The skull and crossbones out here on the water before this day is over.
We don't have a particularly high ceiling here. I would guess it's under 3,000 feet because you can barely see the tops of some of the hillsides on the east side of the race course. And I would guess also that from the rate of speed with which the clouds are passing over, that we are probably on the trailing side of this front, which means the weather could get much better by the afternoon. And if the local bees are any example, when you open up your lunchbox, they're here. So I think they don't think it's going to rain.
I didn't know that. Is that same thing with caterpillars?
I think there's something about that. I grew up in Mount Baker. These bees are familiar to me.
I see.
Well, the first boat's out on the race course, so I think we have now been given the go-ahead.
All right, Mike. Then why don't you go ahead and take it away, and let's go racing.
This, of course, is Heat 2B, and Heat 2B is brought to you by your Northwest Ford dealer, home of the #1 selling line of cars and trucks in America. Test drive a Ford today. Seafair would like to thank Millstone Gourmet Coffee for Heat 2B. The guys are going to think about this rain, though. This wind, though. I know, Chip, as you would sit there with a delay like this, knowing that it's a wind-associated delay, and that even though you'd raced a couple of heats already, you had wind to contend with all day. This sort of kind of moves on your head a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing that's strange about this wind is it's flaky. It's not coming from any one direction. I'm standing here looking at the Budweiser flags, and they change direction about every 30 seconds.
We had
and somebody just spun, leaving the pit area.
Scott Pierce just spun himself around, leaving the pit area, got into the wind, and he hit one of those parallel rollers we were just talking about, not from the log boom, but one that was on the front straightaway, and he was just looking down range, and I don't think he was paying close attention to that. He was not quite up on plane, and it just hooked him.
That's one of the strangest. It's actually Jimmy King.
That's Jimmy King, Graham Trucking. Yes, the Linwood Honda Graham Trucking. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Yeah. There's really nothing there. I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's kind of that's a Firebird spin, Chip.
Yeah,
that kind of thing happens in Firebird all the time down in Phoenix.
I mean, here's the spin. I think we have a shot of Jimmy King leaving the pits here, and he came around the lagoon and started turning right and just started going out onto the race course. Maybe we don't have that.
Well, we'll try to get that up. In the meantime, here we go. We've got it one more time.
No, he's just leaving it at a very slow speed. And then
there's your wake there. See, and he just hit it with his right spot. Left sponson came all the way around. That's kind of those whoops. Sorry about that.
A little surprised he didn't put the fire out.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's exactly right, Steve. The fact that thing restarted and went out there is amazing because that thing ingested a lot of water.
All right, Mike.
Ken Muscatel down in Phoenix got the name Spin Doctor from doing that quite a lot down in Firebird Lake. Well, let's take a look at the combatants in this one. Starting things off for us in this particular race, Mitch Evans is going to be handling the Cooper's boat, which is the Chelan Mill Bay Casino. Mitch has had a great year in this boat. He got it sawed in half at Evansville, believe it or not, put it back together again by Madison. These guys are something else. The Miss Elam Plus, the U16, Nate Brown, figures he's not quite a front runner, but he's there if anybody makes a mistake, and he's looking for a mistake right now in this particular heat. The Chaplin's Bellevue Mazda Subaru, Scott Pierce, the driver. That's a Fred Leland boat, just like the Pico, built just before the brand new Pico, as a matter of fact. So this boat has Fred Leland's stamp of pedigree on it. It's a strong one. The Linwood Honda Graham Trucking, the Spinner, Jimmy King, and also the Miss Budweiser, of course, Mark Evans, having had the points given to him by virtue of a brilliant heat, then taken away, then given back. And this is the guy that's got the pressure on him now. Dave Vilwach's going to have to prove to himself and to everybody else that this Pico came to race. Dennis Parker will be your trailer boat in this particular one, and Ron Burton's boat, the Outback Steakhouse from Melbourne, Australia.
And I'm sure as they were sitting there in the water that the wind delay probably bothered Dave Vilwach more than anybody else out there. He has got to run right into the same wind in his backup boat after being upside down yesterday, and that's the worst possible situation right now is the way the wind is blowing, because the boats are going at their absolute fastest when they get down there to the entrance pin, and as soon as you get the boats crossed up to transition into the turn, the span increases and the boat wants to fly away.
The other bad news for Dave Vilwach here is that he's got Mark Evans inside of him.
That's a disadvantage, certainly, and they're coming to the line now, gentlemen, so let's see if we give them a go. I think they may want to be racing as soon as
possible.
They got
Yeah,
the
they
green.
are. Dave got a big jump right there.
Yeah,
Dave was on the throttle when the green flag came out, and he's just driving away as they're headed down to the first turn right there. He's got a whole bunch of guys on the inside of him, but the boat looks to be hooked up and rolling like he's going a lot faster than he did the first lap last time.
Indeed he has.
He did a
He's
great
controlling
job.
the field all the way through the lower corner there. He's in his rooster tail is Mitch Evans, though. He got into it a little bit. So did the Budweiser. A little bit close down there, but off the turn, it's Dave Villwock, and there is the speed that we thought that he may or may not have had. It's there.
I don't think he's got the speed so much as what he did is he came to the line. Now everybody's got to be behind him at the start. He brought him up early, backed out of it, got everybody else backed out of it, but he jumped on it quicker than the rest of them, and that's the difference, I think.
Very rough into that corner. The Budweiser jumps over the top of the rooster tail of the Pico American Dream, but he came down okay. Mark Evans came down okay, leaped right over the rooster tail, rode right up on it. The boat sometimes can't tell the difference between it. Look out, Dave! Look out, Dave Villwock! Oh, just about blows the Pico over. Talk about the wind if he wasn't thinking about it before. He certainly is now. And Mark Evans is back on the throttle trying to catch him. These drivers got a lot to think about now.
I'll be glad when this heat gets back and everybody's safe, because Mark Evans got himself in big trouble, and then 10 seconds later, Dave Villwock got himself in trouble. And Mark Evans has got his hands full here, doesn't he, Mike?
He does indeed, because inside of him, he's got a handful of help me out here, guys. Nate Brown, thank you very much. Nate Brown is working him over, and that boat is really a nice riding boat, even in all this wind. We lost the Australian boat into the center of the race course, unfortunately, right at the start. They're out of it. All right, Dave Villwock coming out of this turn again. He is now pointed back in the wind for the second time around to finish up. His boat is so light. Let's watch as he comes down the front straightaway. This front straightaway has been nasty to this Pico boat.
This is where he got in trouble right here.
So far, he's feathering out right here. He's not trying to go as hard.
No problem.
Mark is not putting the pressure on him that he was the last time around either. So Dave gets through this section of straightaway okay, gets out of the corner, and around the corner does go Dave Villwock in the Pico American Dream, and there goes Mark Evans around the corner as well. And I think Mark has decided to settle into this thing. Taking 300 points here is probably prudent rather than try to get any crazier than this street has already gotten.
This is a big win for Dave, because what Dave did here is he beat Mark from the outside, and that all of a sudden put him now back in control for late pick in the next heat. So this is very significant that Dave Villwock could not just win this heat, but that he could do it from the outside.
And a 138-mile-an-hour first lap for Dave, and Villwock in the Picos indicates that he's up there on the speed range where the other guys were if he needs to call upon it. Here's the checkered flag. Oh, he's lucky to have finished, let alone win it. Dave Villwock wins it in the Picos American Dream. Second place comes Mark Evans in the Miss Budweiser, and he also is lucky to still be upright after climbing that rooster tail there in turn number 2. Here comes Nate Brown across the line. Nate forgot your name for a moment there. Sorry about that, but he made it through okay, and so did Jimmy King.
Too many white boats out there, Mike.
A lot of white boats, yeah.
You know, that speed that you just gave of 138, was that from the first lap? Was that the first lap?
Yeah, 138.832 first lap.
That is
30 in the second lap, 134 in the third.
That 138, if that was in the first lap, that is extremely significant, because he did that from lane 5. Now, the other guys, Mark Evans had like a 142, but he did that from the inside, so to run 138 the long way around, that's a lot of speed.
Not only that, but in that particular situation, he now knows that even if he gets an outside lane draw, he is able to pull the whole field to the first turn. That's very important.
If he can get a start like that in the final. And what he did, let me go back over that. What he did is, the rule says that the pace boat, the boat on the outside, which was Pico's, everyone has to be behind him when they go past the start line. So what he did is he got everybody up there, and he quickly backed out of the throttle, which made them back out of their throttles, and just as they were doing that, he jumped in it. You know, let's take a look at that Pico boat again, because that was about as close as they come to get on. Here it is now.
Head on now, and he's heading down into that first turn. Down in the so-called fly zone on this race course, and there's a lot of roller action out there, as you can see, the uneven surface. Oh, my, is he close.
Now, is that just luck that thing came back down?
That's
I mean, he's got everything out of the water at that point, prop included.
That's like, at some point you become spam in the can, basically, and you know it's going to do what it's going to do, and what that is good design, and I think that's where I would get in trouble with the Budweisers. I wouldn't even get it that close to being up in the area, and I'd be gone. So that's a beautiful boat that this boat and the boat that actually crashed on Friday, they're great boats.
And Fred Leland and those guys have spent a fair amount of time working these boats out aerodynamically, and you can see right there when the thing got got it pitched up in the air like that, Dave was on the wings. But the other thing that happened is you look back at the transom and you can see that the things that were touching the water, those two little rear sponsons back there, the outside shoes on the back side, they touched first and tended to push the boat nose back down. And as soon as it pitched back over on its nose a little bit, Dave was able to get control back gathered in with the canard.
I don't know if the guys in the truck can do this, but it'd be really cool if they could. If you can find the Budweiser getting up in the air in that first lap in the second corner, because he got in big trouble there too. And what happened was he was inside of Dave. All of a sudden the boat just went to the right and he got up in the rooster tail. So, two big events, two very big events. Let's try and go down the dock and see if we can get a word with Dave Vilwalk.
Well, we're going to go down to him in just a couple seconds. Bill Rocky, are you there?
Right here, Steve, and Dave Vilwalk just got off the boat here. And I think Dave's kind of counting his blessings here. Dave, how high up you got there on that front stretch?
Yeah, we're pretty high, but it's rough out here, and we wanted to win real bad to get our lane choice. That was the heat that we control our destiny. Much like the third heat in Pasco. So try to get in the right lane and see if we can win this thing.
Well, you were in the outside line there, and you still were able to take Mark Evans there.
Yeah, the boat's running good. Good start. So I don't know. We'll just keep running, and it was a near disaster, but we brought it back.
How's this day shaping up for everybody?
It's a tough day. It's a race against the course. We saw Mark Tate, just really struggle with the conditions, and didn't run very high speed in that second heat, 2A. So it's not going to be an easy day. It's going to be a driver's race course. The wind's really howling down here as whitecaps most of the way around the course. So, but we're here to put on a show. We're going to do it.
Well, you put on a show there. Dave's got 2 wins now. Let's go over to Tony Ventrella.
All right, thanks, Bill. We got a couple of battlers here. Let's go to Mark first, and then Nate Brown. Mark, stay right there, Nate. God, a little rough out there. Your front end went up, but Dave looked like he was taking off to Portland.
Oh, crumbly sakes, I thought he was lifting up for sure. I even hollered at Lauren, my radio man, says, he's going over, he's up, as if he can't see. But it is rough this year. I don't know what it is. It's more rough even than last year. But Budweiser boat handled it, and we hung in there, had a good run with Nate for a bit. And
you're doing good. There's only one Budweiser, though. I need to hear a few more. Come on.
Bud. There you go. That's good. Okay, Elam. I'll help you out.
Okay, I can do it in Budweiser. That's cool.
All right, thank you, Nate. Nice. One more question for you, Mark, then we'll get to Nate. So you're not bad today. You won one, you're second on another one.
Right.
You're off to a good start.
Right, we're accumulating points. That's what we need to do. It would have been fun to go out there and beat Pico right off the bat, but they've had a pretty good boat setup, so we just want to get into the final with some decent points.
He got a good start from lane 5.
He sure did. We cruised up there, and he just laid on it and took off. So good start by Pico.
All right, hope the wind calms down quickly.
Really do too. That's for sure.
All right, quick word with Nate before we toss it away. Nate, you did it. Man, you're battling out there. 3rd place finish.
Well, that was cool. It was fun. The second lap, into the first lap, Trace, okay, you're in 3rd all by yourself. Take it easy, back her down. And I went, yeah. So I stood on it, and I came out even with Mark and go, oh boy, here we go. And then he squirted it and left me, But Mark's right. It was really rough. And talk about the Pico getting loose. So even from my vantage point, all I saw was some dances in the white water, which means the boat's out of the water at that point in time. So he's a pretty lucky boy. He says someone's on his side this weekend.
Yes, I think so. I think that's great. Well, great ride. 4th, 3rd. So next we got a second, maybe, huh? Or 1st.
4, 3, 2. Yeah, second or first. That's fine.
The way it adds up. It was a math major. Back to let's toss it over to Rick Carella.
I'm down here on the dock with the Graham Trucking Win-Win Honda boat. Jimmy King, interesting way to start a lap. What were you doing out there?
Just making sure all the crew got all the nuts and bolts on right, basically.
Well, I think when you turn them sideways like that, you can just about check anything.
Yeah.
That water condition extremely rough. What's it feel like back where you were running?
It's bumpy. No doubt it's bumpy. When we were coming out of it, I went to stand on the gas to get it on plane, and the sponson dropped in a hole, and around we went. So we were hoping to step it up this heat, but weren't able to pull it off and see what we can come up with next.
So it's always said if you're not running up first, you might as well do something to get the attention. The sponsor's name was on the air. We showed it over and over. We like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Back up to you, Steve.
All right, Rick Carella, thanks. It appears as it's gotten a little chillier down in the pits, too, as Rick has gone to the big, heavy red jacket down there. Guys, I want to bring Mike Fitzsimmons in to close up a little business here in just a second, but let me ask you a quick question, guys. We heard Dave Vilwalk say he'll choose the right lane when the time comes. What is the right lane for these conditions, Chip?
Great question, and if you knew the answer to that right every time, you'd be a great boat driver. John, I don't know. I'm thinking lane 2 might be the place to go.
I think so. I think that when you've got lane 2 there, you can just offer yourself a little bit more room, and you don't have to, get quite so deep into the steering when you get down there. I mean, when you're on the inside lane, you want to make sure that you don't get a bearing out ruling, and the officials everyone's looking at lane 1. And when you get down there and you really have to cross the boat up and run on the buoy line, you instantly lose 5 to 10 miles an hour as soon as you get that extra drag, and that lets the guys on the outside come in just a little bit deeper, drive in a little bit harder, and take the advantage.
I tell you what, don't go away, folks, because I think we're going to have a boat race going into the final that none of us are going to know who's got a clear-cut advantage.
All right,
Heat
Mike.
2B was brought to you by your Northwest Ford dealer, home of the #1 selling line of cars and trucks in America. Test drive a Ford today. Seafair would like to thank Millstone Gourmet Coffee for Heat 2B. I agree with you, Chip. This is going to be a real exciting finish here, and there's no way anybody knows what's going to happen. I also like lane number 3.
Don't go away.
More to come from Seafair right after this as Dave Vilwalk reaches for the sky. Hey, it's a lovely day out on the lake. Stop on by. We've got winds of 8 to 12 knots and gusts of up to 18 knots out there on the course. Maybe higher where you are. At least it's not raining. Let's go down to the presentation stage for a word from the winner here of Heat 2B.
We at Cascade Coffee, the exclusive distributors of Millstone Coffee, are proud to be sponsors of the 1996 Texaco Cup at Seafair. Congratulations to the winner of Heat 2B, the driver of Pico American Dreams, Dave Vilwalk. Congratulations.
Hey, thanks a lot. Really happy. Texaco Millstone Coffee is a progressive tool. People that sponsor my boat make all this possible. I'm so appreciative that all our fans are down here to watch us do this wonderful sport. Thanks a lot, Seattle.
Dave Vilwalk, a popular young man around these parts. He's got quite a following here, a local guy, Chip, as you.
Yeah, I think Dave is gaining a following. He's pretty new. Dave was my crew chief.
Right.
He was very much responsible for a championship I got with Circus. He grew up in Bremerton. He's very well known. He was a sheet metal guy over there. And I would say every class that Dave has gone into, from limiteds to hydros to flat bottoms to unlimiteds, he's been a winner. He's a brilliant boat driver. A brilliant boat racer. He's not just a driver. In fact, I always just say this about John Walters. If the rule was that the driver had to build the boat, build the engine, build the propeller, Dave Vilwalk would win every race. When John Walters was driving, he was the same kind of guy. He could build a boat, he could build a propeller, he could build an engine. I could only drive the boat, so thank God that wasn't the rule.
John, talk about that a little bit, the transition through all of those jobs. Is boat owner going to be next? I mean, how do you go through all those jobs and become so proficient at them?
Well, I guess, a lot of it was just, that I started at a really early age and made up my mind that when I got older that I wanted to be involved in racing at whatever level I could and as many levels as I could. One of the things that helped that was that I got involved at a real early age, trying to find out everything that I could about boats and how they work and what made them work and every aspect of it. And I guess I just felt that the more you knew about it, the better it was going to be at setting up the boat and the way that how everything worked. It just helps you to understand, what one effect has on another. And I guess the deeper I got into it, the more I needed to learn, and was a pretty good student of the sport and was fortunate enough to be with enough teams and good sponsorship in that allowed me to do just that.
Chip, there are a lot of talented people out there that can do a lot of things in these boat camps, aren't there?
I think one of the saddest things in the sport is that you only get to really see the owner, crew chief, and driver. The dedication amongst the guys who really do the work in this sport goes totally unseen. The hours that are put in, and we're talking like the Australian crew, the Outback crew, they went for 3 days without sleeping to get this boat here. What other form of athlete or sports person does that kind of thing? Driving the trucks. Remember that when these guys get done with this race today, they've got to get these boats put back together, they got to get the trucks reloaded, they got to get everything fixed that was broken, build new things, and then they got to be in Canada at Kelowna, British Columbia by Wednesday. So, a lot of work to do these guys.